everybody's doing everything online. I mean, look at Amazon. Sure, while they're slicing and dicing jobs and tens of thousands of people are becoming unemployed, there's still clearly a strong platform and a need for people to buy products, cars. Hey, who knows, right? Right from their living room. Ford is struggling to sell their used cars and trucks and SUVs. They're looking for solutions. Where's that solution? Well, they're trying to be competitive with the likes of Tesla, who sells direct to the customer. Hyundai recently has also, back in 2023, realized that there's an opportunity to try to sell some of their products online. That's right, through the e-commerce platform. So they don't have to deal with the experience of the dealership. I mean, not that we don't love dealing and getting hacked and beat up and slashed by a sales guy who constantly tells us lies, fibs, fast talks us, and then we have to sit there and waste 8 hours of our day trying to negotiate $100 off the bottom end of the price of a vehicle. But you know what? Ford's realized a lot of their products aren't selling. A lot of their vehicles, their SUVs, their cars, are not selling very well. Mustangs are one of the worst sellers. I've already talked about that. They can't sell those to save their life. And their Ford F-150 Lightnings, they're looking at literally shutting the production manufacturing of those vehicles too. Nobody's buying them, nobody cares. And allegedly, Ford's saying they're losing money on the production of every one of their EVs. Now, while some people are still buying the E-Mustang Mach-E's, a lot of those are coming under the guise of heavy incentives. Again, I've already got a conversation I had recently with a friend of mine who just went in there and got almost a $20,000 deduction or reduction on the price of a brand new Mustang Mach-E. So what does that mean for the used car market? Heavy incentives on brand new means that you're pushing the price of a lot of these new vehicles way down. Nobody wants them. Well, what do you think that's doing on the secondary market? Nobody wants those either. Mustang Mach-E's, F-150 Lightning's not selling at all. The only vehicles that are really keeping Ford afloat, of course, are their full-size trucks. The F-150 has always been one of their best-selling pickups. But a lot of their vehicles, we talk about certainly the Escape, or the Escape, if you will, features in their base trim with a turbo 1.5-liter 3-cylinder. We know the recalls have been absolutely crushing them. They've got that ridiculous, what is it? Fuel injector problem, allegedly cracks, potentially can leak to a fire because it runs down, or allegedly could run down to the hot exhaust system and could start a fire. So there was a recall, and HTSA said that's not good enough. Ford says, well, what we'll do is we'll put in a patch, we'll shut the power off, or essentially shut off the fuel system if we detect a pressure drop. But most importantly, there was actually a straw, some sort of a system to funnel the fuel away and down onto the ground, allegedly. That doesn't seem like a winning surprise. Neither does the fact that found on road dead means that buying a vehicle means you're going to be lining up for recall upon recall. Hundreds of recalls right now are currently afflicting Ford. And a lot of people recognize they're willing to buy a brand new Ford because they get warranty. But the used market is a tough one. They're not selling. Nobody's buying used EVs from Ford, the Mustang Mach-E or the F-150 Lightning. Nobody's really too excited about buying Mustangs. They're not selling new or used. And certainly, what else do they have? They got their little SUVs. The Broncos aren't really that hot of a seller anymore. They were for a while. But now what we're finding is Ford is struggling to sell any products. And so every manufacturer now is looking for new creative ways to try to move metal, so to speak. But guess what? There's now a few states or a few cities that are getting in on a new effort with Amazon, collaborating, if you will. Because for a while, franchise dealers could not sell. There was some U.S. law, whatever, related to the fact that franchise dealers, as long as they were involved, didn't have, you could not sell direct to the consumer. Because Ford couldn't sell directly to a customer who wanted to buy right from your living room. The franchise dealers were, of course, it was more or less mandated that the dealers had to be sort of the intermediary. They had to sell the product. They had to deliver the product. And so that left a lot of snookering for Ford corporate, as it were, to try to sell a lot of their products. They had to go right to the franchise dealer, then to the customer. Of course, that makes them less competitive because Tesla sells right to the consumer, and naturally there's a middleman that's consuming a part of that profit. Every time you incorporate another chunk of pie in the middle there somewhere, you lose some of your competitiveness, and that's what's been going on in the new market. But now there's 3 cities, Seattle, Los Angeles, and Dallas, are three major cities that are looking at getting in on the game. That's right, certified pre-owned Ford vehicles are a type of product that they're looking at collaborating with Amazon. I mean, we know Amazon's great for buying your widgets and fidgets if you want to buy parts and pieces and junk, and I mean, it doesn't matter. You can find just about anything from little car parts to widgets for hanging in your bathroom to smelling salts to shoes to you just about name it. They sell just about everything. Up until about 23, they didn't sell cars. And then Hyundai got in on the game. They said, look, we're going to start getting in on this game of looking at selling some of our products through the Amazon network. Well, we know Amazon takes a slice of the pie too, so it's not exactly free. So you know Ford's not doing it for nothing either, and clearly there's a bit of a under the bottom line that goes to Amazon to sell the product through their e-commerce network. So what is that telling us? That Ford's not selling their used cars. The used car market is clearly one that they got to find, they've got to tap in, and they're trying to compete with the Carvanas, the CarMaxes, and some of those other big players that rely largely on their online, the e-commerce platforms. Sure, while there's still some brick and mortar aspect of it, the e-commerce is growing. A lot of people would rather shop from their living room. And Ford is trying to recognize that, wait a minute, we're trying to compete with the likes of Tesla. We're having to put some extra costs in here, but we're just not being competitive. We've also got to get that reach out there for more eyes on the prize. And so these cities are starting to trial run this. But on top of it, Ford is recognizing that there's actually about 120 to 180 dealers that are showing more interest in doing this. That's right, offering the sale of some of their used inventory, the crap that nobody wants. It is coming certified pre-owned, so that generally means it has to go through a series of checks and balances and quality, make sure the tires aren't bald and the brakes aren't worn out, and that everything is warranted and, almost as good as new, and certainly something that Ford would back themselves. That's the type of inventory now that's likely subjected. Here coming up this week, they're talking about Ford now introducing a new platform on the Amazon website. So now, as we see in 2025, really, as we're rolling into 2026, this whole market platform or dynamic is shifting. One that looks like all of these big players are starting to look at other options. Poor sales, brick and mortar, foot traffic. We all know that the only way a dealer can sell typically cars is either they have a network where they can reach out to dealers across the country, or they rely on walk-in traffic. And let's face it, less people are walking around looking for cars these days simply because they don't just have the money. Most of the time, these people are riding around on their bikes. They don't have a car to even get to the dealership to shop around because a lot of people are broke, trying to pay for food, groceries, medicine, rent. It's a catastrophic failure waiting to happen. We see unemployment rate. Verizon just laid off a crap ton of people. Amazon's laying off themselves. We're seeing lots of auto sector layoffs. We're seeing layoffs almost everywhere, pretty much across the board, US, Canada, and it's just inevitable. It's going to happen. Corporations are looking for newfound ways to make more profits and to find ways to find efficiencies. Well, this is one of Ford's ways. We already know that Ford's been complaining that a lot of their empty bays are just that, empty. Mechanic bays. They don't have enough mechanics to fix their used cars in the service departments. Well, a lot of that has to do with underpaid mechanics. A lot of it has to do with business models. But at the end of the day, call it what it is. Nobody is shopping at the Ford dealers, whether it's through service, parts, and in many cases, even new vehicles. New vehicles are highly incentivized, and if they're not selling. Used vehicles, forget about it. So Amazon, it looks to be coming to the rescue, and Ford is reaching out, looking for that life raft. Give me a hand, give me a break. We need some help over here. Anyway, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Would you be willing to buy a Ford from an online platform without even be able to kick the tires or take it for a test drive? I don't know. I'm not sold on that yet, but I'd like to see how this all pans out here in the long run. 2026 looks to be an interesting year of transition where all these manufacturers look at newfound ways to conduct their business. Hope to see each and every one of you real soon, everybody. See you then. Bye-bye.